Well, folks, the media have a rule. So do our politicians. The idea is that if there is looting and mayhem, but it's black people doing the looting and mayhem, then we have to pretend that it's not happening or that it's not that bad. So as we reported yesterday, over the weekend, there was a giant ransacking in the Loop of Chicago, which is the downtown, really nice storefront area. Here is a video of one group jumping on cars and running across traffic in Chicago. Again, this sort of characterized Chicago over the weekend. You see this group of young people. And as you can see, the race of young people, disproportionately a black crowd here. Don't report the race, ever, is the rule, if the race does not match what the narrative ought to be. Okay, or how about Walmarts being looted in Chicago? And Walmarts are being shut down in Chicago because of the looting problems in Chicago. And then you have inner city leaders who are going out and saying things like, how dare these corporations shut down? But here's a Chicago woman, presumably of color, crying while documenting this Walmart being looted.
Every grocery store looks like this. Everything is either on the floor. Look at this.
The celery's still fully stocked.
Can't even get no food for my kids, G. Look at this. Came in the store to try to buy something because I'm not a thief. Look at this. In my hood, can't even get no food for my kids.
Okay, but the media won't cover this. I mean, they won't. If they do cover it, they'll talk about systematic poverty or some such nonsense. Okay, meanwhile, here's an actual interracial crime story. Okay, so here's a video that emerged over the course of the last couple of days. Is a white woman getting the actual hell beat out of her by a black crowd. That is what is happening here. Somebody posted this on their Instagram page, I believe, or on YouTube, and said, "Yay, we get active." This is what it means to get active, apparently, in Chicago, is for a black crowd to beat the living hell out of a young white woman, is what this looks like here. That is a young white woman trying to get into her building, and now they're just going to beat the living out of her. Truly evil behavior here, obviously. And look at that guy's sweatshirt, antisocial social club. Like, people are coming to do this sort of stuff. Like, people are gathering. They are coordinating with one another to do these sorts of things. And so what does our political class do? Well, I mean, if it's a black crowd doing this to a white woman, we don't even know the name of that white woman. We don't know what happened to her. I mean, from that video, I would assume that she was gravely injured. That is a crowd of predominantly young black men beating the living hell out of a white lady. And no one cares in the media. No one cares enough to actually pursue who is that woman? What actually happened to her? Is she in the hospital? Did she do anything? Like, what exactly is it? No one cares. Is Joe Biden going to call her family? I don't think so. Joe Biden doesn't know her name. Joe Biden doesn't care about her name. Joe Biden doesn't care about any of that because the narrative doesn't match. This has nothing to do with the evil that was done to Ralph Yarl. That isn't evil. What this has to do with is the massive narrative double standard that the media create, in which we are all supposed to believe that the true threat to racial peace in the United States is white people who are preying on black people. That's the lie. It's not true. And meanwhile, stories like this, the only way to preserve that narrative, because statistically it's not true, is to simply ignore stuff like this. So you have Lori Lightfoot, the current outgoing mayor of Chicago, saying, it's wrong to call this, I don't know, does it look like mayhem to you? That looked like mayhem to me.
Lightfoot says there's lots of opportunity to redirect young people to safe spaces, but scoffed at one reporter describing what happened as, quote, mayhem.
And here's the thing. The mass majority of the young people that came downtown because it was a great weather and an opportunity to enjoy the city. That's absolutely entirely appropriate. There are a few that came with different intentions, and they have and they will be dealt with. But I'm not going to use your language, which I think is wrong, to say that is mayhem.
It was wrong to say that's mayhem. They're out there to enjoy the weather while they're beating the living hell out of a white woman and trashing cars and burning them and looting things. Yes, well done. Now, would Lori Lightfoot have similar feelings if the races were reversed here? Of course not. Of course not. Imagine a white crowd beating the living hell out of a black woman like that. Not only would that be front page news, it would be front page news for months. I mean, this Ralph Yarl case is going to be front page news for the next several weeks, minimum, because it's going to be treated as indicative of the experience of young black men in the United States. In a second, I actually want to go through the statistics here, because if we're going to talk about interracial crime, now, the vast majority of crime in the United States is intraracial. meaning white on white crime, black on black crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime. The only group for which that is not true in the United States, ethnically speaking, is Asians. For Asians, the majority of crime committed against Asians is by people of other races. But for everybody else, it's intra-racial crime. We'll get to that momentarily. First, if you own a business, the past few years have been a bumpy ride. You could probably use a break. Innovation Refunds can help. Innovation Refunds knows the value of your time, which is why they made it easy to apply for the Employee Retention Credit, or ERC. Go to getrefunds.com to get started in less than 8 minutes. See if your business qualifies for ERC assistance. Your business may be eligible for a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee kept on payroll during COVID-19. Innovation Refunds has already helped clients claim over $3 billion in payroll tax refunds through the ERC. They might be able to help your business too. There is no upfront charge. They don't get paid until your business gets its refund. And if you overpaid your taxes, why not get some of that money back? I mean, the fact is the government's been taking so much of your money. They've been shutting down your business during COVID and putting additional restrictions on you. If you paid too much in your tax, why not get that money back right now? Don't miss the opportunity. This payroll tax refund is only available for a limited amount of time. Head on over to getrefunds.com. Again, that is getrefunds.com, GETREFUNDS.com, getrefunds.com. Go check them out right now. The economy is under a lot of stress right now. Your skincare routine does not have to be. Genucel is dedicated to helping you through trying times. To prove it, they're offering over 70% off their most popular package. Plus, for the first time ever, Genucel is including both the Ultra Retinol and Dark Spot Corrector with every purchase of their most popular package. Don't miss out on this amazing deal just in time for warmer days ahead. Genucel's Ultra Retinol contains a powerful retinol alternative safe to use on your skin in the summer sun. Their Dark Spot Corrector helps reduce the appearance of dark marks and sunspots right now. You can get them both in Genucel's most popular package. So producer Savvy just had a baby, which means she's never sleeping again. But she's been using Genucel to make herself look better because, let's face it, when you're a parent, you don't get any sleep. You need Genucel. Try it for yourself. Get Genucel's most popular package for 70% off at Genucel.com/Shapiro. Every order subscription includes a luxury gift box with 2 free springtime essentials. That's 2 free gifts plus free shipping. Go to Genucel.com/Shapiro. Again, that's Genucel.com/Shapiro, GENUCEL.com/Shapiro. And every order subscription includes that luxury gift box with 2 free springtime essentials. Let's go through some of the stats here. Because again, the media narrative here, the media from Joe Biden, the media from everyone today and for the next couple of weeks and forever probably is going to be that black men live under constant threat, right? This was the George Floyd Black Lives Matter narrative. Black men are living under constant threat because on rare occasions, people like Ralph Yarl are shot through the door by a possibly demented 84-year-old racist, right? That's the narrative. Because black people in America, they are under the thumb of the system, and the system is reflected in shootings like that one. So now let's talk about actual crime statistics in the United States. All the stuff you're not supposed to talk about, ever supposed to talk about. Okay, the reality is, as I've said, intraracial crime represents the vast majority of crime in the United States, violent crime in the United States. Interracial crime is disproportionately black on white, not white on black. Wildly disproportionately black on white, not white on black. So let's look at the race and ethnicity of violent crime offenders and arrestees. 2018, this is the DOJ reporting this, quote, relative to their share of the U.S. population, 60%, white people were underrepresented among offenders in non-fatal violent crimes overall, 52%. They accounted for 45% of offenders involved in aggravated assault and 31% of offenders involved in robbery. They were not underrepresented to a statistically significant degree among offenders involved in rape or sexual assault or simple assault. Black people were overrepresented among offenders in non-fatal violent crimes overall. 29% of all non-fatal violent crimes were committed by black people relative to their share of the U.S. population, which is 13%. Half of all offenders involved in robbery, 51%, a majority of offenders involved in robbery, were represented by 13% of the population. A third involved in aggravated assault, 34%. More than a fifth involved in simple assault. And more than a fifth involved in rape or sexual assault were black. Okay, so most of that crime, again, is occurring. This is not interracial crime. That's just generalized crime statistics. Black Americans are overrepresented in the crime stats, both among the victims and among the perpetrators. Because black on black crime, again, represents the vast majority of crimes against black people. Now, let's get to the actual statistics on interracial homicide. Okay, we'll use interracial homicide as an example because these are examples that we're looking at, attempted homicides. Okay, so here is the interracial homicide as a percentage of homicides by the victim's race. Okay, so this is a chart from U.S. News and World Report from 2001 to 2015. What you'll see is it's absolutely consistent. These are just straight lines. These are absolutely flat lines. So, white victims killed by blacks as a percentage of white people killed overall, that represents something like 15 to 17%. every year from 2001 to 2015. Like somewhere between 15 and 17% seems about right. And then if you look at the black victims killed by whites, that represents about half that number in terms of the actual percentage. So, for example, we'll take 2019. 2019 is a perfect example of this. And again, this is a perfectly consistent stat. This is year over year, every year. Every year, about twice the percentage of whites are killed by blacks as a percentage of white people generally, as blacks are killed by whites as a percentage of black people generally. Okay, which means that when you adjust for population size, black on white homicide is significantly more of a problem than white on black homicide. According to the FBI statistics, 3,299 white Americans were murdered in 2019. 79% of those, 2,594 of them, were killed by white perps. 566 of them, 17%, were killed by black perpetrators. So again, that means that 17% of white Americans who were murdered in 2019 were killed by black perpetrators, according to the FBI. Now let's look at black Americans. For black Americans, 2,906 black Americans were murdered in 2019. 2,574 of them, 89%, were killed by black perpetrators. 8%, 246, were killed by white perpetrators. So 17% of white Americans who were murdered in 2019 were murdered by blacks. 8% of blacks who were murdered in 2019 were killed by whites. So on a raw level, a white American was about twice as likely to be killed by a black American as vice versa. Okay, but we also have to take into account the percentages of the population at work here. So there are about 235 million white Americans. There are about 47 million black Americans, which means that 1 out of every million white Americans killed a black person in the year 2019. By contrast, 12 out of every million black Americans killed a white person in 2019. Okay, so again, this is not to suggest that there's like a huge threat of black people killing white people. Again, the vast majority, like you're talking about very small numbers compared to the overall population. Nor is this to suggest anything inherent about race. What this is to suggest is the entire media narrative that is going to be drawn now, as always, when a white person kills a black person, is that black people are in, like this was literally the lie of Black Lives Matter, that black people were being killed in overwhelming numbers by white people. And it is not true. It is not true. On a statistical level, it is more likely that if a white person is killed, they were killed by a black person, than if a black person was killed, they were killed by a white person by a factor of about 2. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be talking with Heather McDonald. She's a brand new book out all about the meritocracy being destroyed by wokeism. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.